With the popularity of off-road SUVs reaching their peak in 2025, Toyota had to get in on the action because let's be honest here, people want a Land Rover Defender, they want a Ford Bronco, they want a Jeep Wrangler. Now a lot of you are going to be saying, well, you could just buy a 4Runner and call it a day at around maybe $45,000 or $50,000. Why is the Land Cruiser so enticing and a vehicle I should be taking a look at? Well, you've come to the right place because this vehicle is enticing, but also somewhat perplexing. And when you even it out at the end of the day, that makes me pretty interested, which is why I am here. As you can tell from the outside, it has some heritage to it because our model is the 1958 edition, taking some design elements from its earlier predecessors. Now for 2025, it has been repositioned in the lineup to be more affordable and to take on other vehicles in this market, and that might be a winning formula. In today's video, we're going to check out what this vehicle has to offer. We're going to take a look at the exterior, the interior, take it out for a test drive, and see why, if you are in the market for a rugged SUV that is designed and capable to take on any element you throw at it, then maybe taking a look at the 2025 Toyota Land Cruiser 1958 edition might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to AutoFair Toyota in Tewksbury, Massachusetts for letting me come down here to check out the Toyota Land Cruiser. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Toyota inventory. So as always, let's begin with pricing. For 2025 with the Toyota Land Cruiser 1958 edition, you're looking at a starting cost of right around $56,700. This could be seen as an affordable alternative in this market where you're not looking for an off-road SUV like a Ford Bronco, like a Jeep Wrangler. What you're really looking for is that Land Rover Defender, maybe even that Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon, but that's far and away out of your budget. With the Land Cruiser, you get that same styling, you get the same body lines, and you get the same driving characteristics, but at a much more affordable price point. Now, I do want you guys taking out your notepads though, because there is a lot to digest here with the Land Cruiser. I know a lot of you are going to be saying, well, at $56,700, I could go with a Toyota 4Runner. I'm getting a more well-equipped model in the 4Runner lineup than I am going to have here with the Land Cruiser. But I think the Land Cruiser is a completely different vehicle for a completely different market, and I completely disagree with the idea that both models are going head-to-head in the same segment. Now, with the Land Cruiser for 2025, it is built on the exact same platform as the 4Runner, so it is a Tacoma platform, so you are going to have the body-on-frame attributes here with this SUV. Ground clearance comes in at 8.7 inches. Now, the 4Runner does have a max ground clearance of 9.2, so if you're someone who does go off-road, maybe you're going to want to go with that 4Runner. Also, the 4Runner comes with a third row, whereas the Land Cruiser is solely a two-row SUV. Now, taking a look at the design for our model today, with it being a 1958 edition, we have the circular headlights that are full LED here. We also have the fog lights as well. And again, this reminds me of what you have with that Ford Bronco, with that Land Rover Defender. The circular lights, I think, is a nice touch here. Lets you know that it is an SUV, that Toyota isn't moving away from their heritage and what they've been offering over the past 20 years or so with the Land Cruiser nameplate. It's just that we have a smaller SUV here that actually is sold in other parts of the world, but we're getting this new model for the first time. Now, also what you have here for the front fascia is that old Toyota badge written out on the front grille. Love to see that. That gives you the old Toyota styling that we no longer have in the lineup anymore. So that's actually really refreshing. Better yet though, when you take a look at the lower portion of the front bumper, you do have active side air curtains, or functional side air curtains, I should say, which gives you better airflow and also helps out with that efficiency as well. Obviously, you are going to have the ground clearance here, so you're not going to be scraping when you are taking on some of those elements or winter road conditions. So a lot of capability here for the 1958 edition. Then as you make your way over the side profile, our model is sitting on the 18-inch wheels here. Now, the Land Cruiser does offer all-terrain tires, but that will affect on-road comfort and ride quality. So keep that in mind when you are looking at buying a Land Cruiser for 2025, because you can go with 20s on the higher trim. So that might play around with the driving dynamics for sure. But the 18s look really good here on our model. Now, obviously, with this being a 1958 edition, you are going to have the cladding here for the side mirror caps. They're not going to be body color matched. That's to be expected, and that matches up with the cladding that you have on the wheel wells. So this is a rugged SUV for sure at around $60,000. But we do have blind spot detection for added safety, so that is really great to see here for the 1958 edition. Then as you make your way around to the back, you are going to have LED taillights, so full LED light setup here for the front and rear fascias. just love to see that. Also, for the lower portion of the rear bumper, you are going to have that visible exhaust outlet. But Toyota did a fantastic job in regards to the styling. I know some people disagree with that, but this gives you more of that traditional Land Cruiser design that you had in the 90s, which I really do appreciate. This is really bringing me back to the old days with the Land Cruiser nameplate. Also, of course, with its design, I think some people could easily cross-shop this with that Land Rover Defender, and obviously for those of you who aspire to own a Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon, you at least have an SUV that kind of gives you that styling and rugged attributes, but at a much more affordable price point, under 60 grand. Under the hood for the 2025 Land Cruiser, you are going to have a 2.4-liter turbocharged hybrid 4-cylinder engine, producing 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission. Obviously, all-wheel drive will come standard here, unlike with the 4Runner, because with the 4Runner you can go with rear-wheel drive. So this vehicle is solely designed to take on the elements and the terrain you might be throwing at it. Also, with this powertrain, you are going to have a towing capacity of 6,000 pounds. So if you are going on those excursions, those weekend road trips, you're towing a small boat or RV, you can do that here with this SUV. Now, for those of you thinking with the hybrid powertrain, oh, this is going to be an efficient vehicle. Well, not so much. You're looking at 22 miles per gallon in the city and 25 miles per gallon on the highway, which isn't earth-shattering. However, it is better than the Land Rover Defender with the 4-cylinder. So if you're looking for an SUV that's designed like this, that's rugged, that's capable, and you want to just stretch your dollar just a bit more when you're going to the pump, the Land Cruiser might be the better choice out of the two. Hopping inside the Land Cruiser 1958 edition, you are greeted by, I don't want to say a basic interior, but definitely an old school driving environment that we don't really see a lot in this market anymore. You look at this model from the outside, then your first impressions for the interior, aside from the digital gauge cluster and infotainment system, and you're thinking, wow, I'm going back to the 90s here with this model, and it's actually kind of refreshing here. Obviously, you're not going to have all the creature comforts and amenities out of this model, so you might want to spend a little extra for that Land Cruiser where you are going to have those luxurious attributes. However, with a 1958 edition, you are going to receive manually adjustable cloth seats for both the driver and passenger. Both sides are heated, so that's right, no power adjustability out of this trim. Is that a negative? Is that a takeaway? I mean, that depends on what you're looking for in 2025. This kind of reminds me of what this segment used to be like many years ago. So if you're looking for an old school rugged vehicle that you can kind of beat up in 2025, you can do that here with the Land Cruiser. Now, also what you're going to find here with these seats is that they're very comfortable, because I know a lot of you are going to say, all right, cloth seats, is it going to feel luxurious? Is it going to feel refined? Am I going to be comfortable being behind the wheel? You are for sure. The bolstering and support is actually really good here. So when you are on those trails, you're going off-road, or maybe even just on those longer road trips, you'll not be swinging around too much here with this vehicle. That is one thing we're going to talk about when we take this vehicle out for a test drive, is that even though it is a body-on-frame SUV, it might not feel as truck-like as the old Land Cruiser or other vehicles in this market. Also, the cushioning is fantastic. There's a lot of cushioning here to the backs of these seats and the bottom, so you will not be feeling fatigued or having any type of back pain when you are driving this vehicle on those longer road trips. Better yet, you are going to receive a heated steering wheel. So you have heated front seats, heated steering wheel, so on those colder mornings or colder days, you will be nice and warm here being behind the wheel of the Land Cruiser. As expected, no aggressive 10-2 or firm 9-3 grips, but you would expect that out of a model such as this, since it's not a sports crossover. Now, in front of you will be a digital gauge cluster that we find in a lot of Toyota products, set up the exact same way as other vehicles that we have featured in the lineup in recent months. So it's not going to be super in-depth or complicated. As always, you are going to have the buttons on the left side of the steering wheel to scroll through a variety of information, such as your remaining fuel range, also your average fuel economy statistics, adaptive cruise control, onboard compass, your radio, then driver info such as your trip computer and trip distance. And lastly will be all your safety systems here, such as your lane departure warning, blind spot detection. You can turn all these systems on or off. I would leave most of them on for added safety and assurance when you are on those road trips or just commuting to work every single day, especially if you have kids in the second row. Then taking a look at the infotainment system, you're not going to have that 12-inch user interface that you are going to find on the higher trim for 2025. However, this is the exact same technology and software found in the rest of the Toyota product line. So you're not missing out on anything here at all. You are going to have onboard navigation that you can subscribe to, but through Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you can just use Google Maps or Waze for more efficiency and convenience. It's also from here on the left side of the screen, you can access different menus such as your radio, Bluetooth and phone connectivity, but probably more importantly is your vehicle settings tab. So from here, you can access trip information and vehicle alert, but also climate as well. However, you are going to have physical buttons for your dual zone climate control beneath the head unit, and also it's from here where you can turn on your heated front seats, heated steering wheel, AC, front and rear defrosters. So you're still going to have more of a tactile experience here with the Land Cruiser, which I have to say is quite refreshing in 2025. Then lastly, you are going to have more of a general settings tab here. We see this across the entire Toyota product line. So from here, you can scroll through personal info, Bluetooth and devices, general notifications, Wi-Fi, display, and etc. So you can scroll through all this on your own time and at your own discretion, but it's still very straightforward, very easy to use, and I don't think any of you are going to find this complicated on a daily basis. Now, when placing the Land Cruiser in reverse with the 1958 edition, you are only going to receive a rear backup camera. That is it. So you're not going to have a number of different camera angles to choose from here for the 1958 edition. If you're looking for that, go for that higher trim. Spend 65 grand, that would probably be a better choice for you, especially for a vehicle of this size. You're going to want to have that extra safety when you are backing out of tight spots or in a tight garage. Continuing on, as we already saw with the button layout, beneath that you are going to find 3 USB-C inputs. Then next to that will be a drive mode selector. So from here you can scroll through Sport, Normal, or Eco. Most likely you're probably going to be in Normal or Sport the entire time. I highly doubt you're going to be utilizing Eco mode out of an SUV like the Land Cruiser. Last, you'll see DAC and crawl, which is basically hill descent control and crawl mode. So when you are taking on those elements, when you're taking on those hills off-road, you can do so very safely. So the gear selector will be a cubby for a smartphone, and higher trims you will have a wireless phone charging pad, so keep that in mind. You're also going to find 2 cup holders here, obviously. Then on the left side, on the driver's side, will be your electronic parking brake and auto vehicle hold, traction control on and off switch, then your center and rear locking differentials. And then obviously with this vehicle being a body-on-frame SUV, you have high and low here for your all-wheel drive system. So you're going to have a lot of capability here, even out of the 1958 edition. And lastly, for the center storage compartment, there is plenty of room here for some smaller items, maybe some tech gadgets, iPhones, wallets, and then I think you can probably store a couple small water bottles as well. So very versatile for sure up front. Now for passengers in the second row, they're going to receive right around 37 inches of legroom, which is more than sufficient for an SUV of this size and in its market. Remember, there's not a lot of competitors right now that the Land Cruiser is going head-to-head against. You could cross up this with a 4Runner and then obviously on the higher end with a Land Rover Defender, but there's just not a lot of competitors here that I would say, all right, the Land Cruiser is falling behind in any way, shape, or form. Now, if you're looking for a family-friendly SUV that also gives you the rugged attributes, you have that here with this model. You have a higher roof line, so taller passengers will not be hitting their head on the headliner. You also have a lot of legroom too. Even though 37 inches doesn't sound like a lot, it's more than adequate for sure. I mean, this seat is adjusted most of the way back. It's also somewhat on a recline, and I have plenty of legroom here where I can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the driving experience. And speaking about relaxing, these second row seats do recline a bit by about 10 to 15 degrees to maximize that headroom, but also to add that extra comfort here. But it does go one step further, because for the second row, you do get climate control, which is great to see. And that's why when I look at this model, even the 1958 edition, I see an SUV that should have a third row. And we're going to talk about this in a minute when we check out the cargo area, because 3-zone climate control isn't typically found out of a base trim. It's also back here where you will find 2 USB-C inputs and a 12-volt outlet. And then to round out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now, as we make our way around to the back, one more time to take a look at the rear cargo area. Before we open up this tailgate, there is one feature I want to show you guys, and that is the ability to open up the rear window. That is right. Much like you see with other vehicles in this market, like the Ford Bronco Sport, this is great to see. So if you have cargo here and you just want to grab it immediately, you can do so for sure. And the reason why that's important is because with the 1958 edition, you are not going to receive a power liftgate. So you might want to take that in consideration when you're looking at buying one of these vehicles. Now inside behind the second row seat, you're looking at right around 37.5 cubic feet of room, which is better than the Land Rover Defender 110. The reason why I keep bringing up that Land Rover Defender is because the Land Cruiser is designed and set up to be a direct competitor to that model. So if you're someone who might be on a bit of a budget here, you don't want to spend over $60,000 or $65,000, the Land Cruiser would be a better choice. Now, as you can tell, this vehicle is set up to be a 3-row SUV. You see that with the cup holders and the 2 USB-C inputs for the cargo area. Now, with the Lexus GX, which is built on the exact same platform, you do get that 3rd row. So hopefully at some point in the future, Toyota gives us that 3rd row for better family friendliness out of this model. On the right side of the cargo area, you are going to find a 3-pronged outlet. So when you are on those off-road excursions, maybe you're camping, you can charge up anything back here, which is great to see. Then with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right on 80 to 82 cubic feet of room. Once again, going to outclass that Land Rover Defender. So if you're someone looking for a rugged SUV that is body on frame and you want that practicality, you're going to find that here with a Toyota Land Cruiser. In its first year of production for this generation, Toyota sold more Land Cruisers in 2024 than in the prior 10 years combined. Now, obviously, the Land Cruiser for the last generation was larger and far more expensive, so that's to be expected. But by repositioning this model to a more affordable price bracket, it has become somewhat of an attainable status symbol, despite all the criticism on the internet right now. I mean, Toyota has become the center of controversy for this platform because not only with the Land Cruiser do you have a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that is hybrid, but then with the Tacoma, they dropped the V6 for a Turbo 4, and everyone has been complaining about that. However, with the Land Cruiser, this has become a popular choice in one short year in its segment. In fact, it outsold the Land Rover Defender, which tells you right there that buyers are loving what this SUV has to offer. And why could that be the case? One, it's more affordable than a Land Rover Defender. It's mostly going to be a bit more reliable than a Land Rover Defender. And more importantly, it looks like a Land Rover Defender. Those 3 checkpoints right there is going to draw in a lot of attention from buyers who want a status symbol, that love a Land Rover Defender but can't afford one, want a G-Wagon, but that's way out of their price point. Aside from the superficial aspects that surround the Land Cruiser, in regards to the driving dynamics and driving experience, this is a true body-on-frame SUV. You feel that when you go over the bumps and imperfections. The suspension is a bit stiff and rigid, and a lot of you are most certainly going to be looking for that out of a model such as this. I mean, take a look at the Land Rover Defender. It's not actually built on a body-on-frame chassis, so the Defender is a bit more softer with the 4-cylinder compared to what I'm experiencing right now. Although back-to-back, you might not even notice the difference aside from the interior quality and materials that Toyota's using here at $56,700 compared to what you're going to find with a Land Rover Defender at around $65,000 or $70,000. In regards to the handling and steering input, it's actually quite light, so you are going to have some maneuverability here. Not a lot of feedback when you are in the corners or when you are on those winding back roads, but that's to be expected. This is an SUV, not a sports crossover. So for those of you who maybe have looked at the Land Rover Defender or G-Wagon, maybe even a Ford Bronco or Jeep Wrangler, the driving dynamics aren't going to be drastically different in that regard, although I do think this is a more comfortable driving experience compared to a Wrangler or Ford Bronco. So that might be another reason why a lot of buyers are looking at this, because from a practicality standpoint, it is very spacious, conducive for a smaller family and a growing family, and it's also an SUV that has the rugged capabilities and attributes that you would be looking for if you are someone who goes on frequent road trips and adventures. Now, with this Turbo 4, I will say that it is quite audible. When you are on throttle, it growls quite a bit, and there is somewhat of a drone when you are entering highways and passing slower drivers or accelerating hard off the line. That's where I think a lot of buyers would prefer a V6 or a V8. I think that a larger engine would be fantastic for this generation. Just the way it's styled, it's just begging for a V6 or a V8. But unfortunately, Lexus is going to be using that V6, so you're not going to see that here for the Land Cruiser anytime soon, at least in my opinion. Now, as a daily commuter, and when you're cruising around in the city and suburbs or in stop-and-go traffic, the suspension isn't too bad. You're not getting abused here, although when you do go over the potholes and the manhole covers, you feel the vibration here. So it's most certainly a body-on-frame SUV, but I don't think this is going to be something that's too harsh or too unbearable as a daily driver. Now, in sport mode, the throttle response is very aggressive and active, so you're going to notice that this vehicle can get out of its own way very easily, which is a bit of a surprise with the Turbo 4. But then again, take a look at the torque figures. I mean, over 400 pound-feet of torque, this is not going to be a slow or lethargic SUV by any stretch of the imagination, even though a lot of you are clamoring for the V6 and V8. Also, with this being a hybrid 4-cylinder, it's not, I'm not going to say fuel efficient, but it's better than most rivals. Then obviously with the towing capacity, you know, this vehicle is very versatile in more ways than one with its ground clearance and what you can do with it on a day-to-day basis. What I also like here about this engine and this 8-speed automatic, it's not clunky. The 8-speed shifts pretty quickly and the gear shifts are somewhat smooth here. Now, not as smooth as the ZF 8-speed in the Land Rover Defender, but you get my drift. Heading into the corners at around 40 miles an hour, you know, body roll isn't too bad. And steering input is pretty good, despite the fact that it is somewhat light. I can get the speed pretty good here. It's not lacking. Very impressive, very impressive. More than willing to meet your demands. Now, since we're at highway speeds, let's talk about the road noise here, because, you know, at 65 miles an hour, and with the boxy frame here that we have for this model, I mean, you would expect a lot of that road noise seeping into the interior. And honestly, you know, it's not too bad. I mean, we have the 18-inch wheels, so with the 20s on the higher trim, that will definitely play a role with the ride quality and just the interior insulation. But I mean, this isn't too bad for a vehicle at 56.7. I was expecting a lot worse. Now, like I said before, the Turbo 4 does make some noise here. It's not going to be a quiet powertrain, but that's to be expected. And to be honest, I am a bit impressed here for a vehicle like this, where one, it's not slow, it can meet your demands, and two, I mean, it feels all around smooth. What I also like too is that when you get on throttle, you hear that turbo spool. I'd like to throw in a cold air intake on this model. That would be really nice to have. But honestly though, all in all, after this quick test drive, you know, what the Land Cruiser is offering here, and I understand that some people are going to say, oh, I wish we had a V6, or you might want to go with that GX. You know, do you have to though? Do you really? Because with the GX, you're spending over $60,000. For a well-equipped model, you're spending close to 80 grand. You know, I mean, that really is quite expensive. And then you could cross-shop that with a Land Rover Defender. So, I don't know. I mean, this is a great choice if you're someone who's not too thrilled with a Ford Bronco, although the Ford Bronco is one of the best sellers in this market. And then also if you're someone who wants a Land Rover Defender, you want an SUV that feels somewhat upscale and luxurious, but you can't spend, you know, $65,000, $70,000, I think that's where you're going to like the Land Cruiser for sure. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick review for the 2025 1958 edition. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.